The Valari Dominion had traveled across countless light-years with a single mission, to bring Earth to its knees. Expecting the usual cries of surrender, the alien fleet loitered outside the orbit of Earth's atmosphere, their advanced sensors, picking up no distress signals and no desperate messages. Instead, there was nothing. Silence reigned in the void, as complete and unnerving as the calm before a storm. The alien ships, with their sleek, intimidating designs and unyielding purpose, hung in space like silent predators waiting for a single movement to trigger the hunt. They expected Earth to panic, to plead, or at the very least, send a message of fear. But nothing came. Captain Zandor, one of the fleet's most seasoned officers, studied the endless streams of data coming from Earth. His eyes, glowing with a strange mix of excitement and anxiety, reflected the cold blue light of distant stars. In the control center of his vessel, alarms had ceased earlier when the unusual quiet set in, replaced by a puzzling routine of static and emptiness. For every world he had conquered, there had always been a frantic message, an angry broadcast, pleading for mercy or a defiant shout of resistance. But Earth's communication channels were as empty as a hollow shell. The Valari had expected chaos, resistance even, but as they hovered, the silence stretched on, consuming every expectation of what an invasion should be. Zandor recalled the orders from higher command: conquer swiftly, subdue quickly, and instill terror so complete that the galaxy would learn to fear the Valari Dominion. Yet with each passing hour, the tension among the ranks grew. Soldiers and officers whispered theories about Earth's unusual behavior. Some suspected that the humans might have foreseen the attack and disabled all communication links, choosing silence over surrender, while others believed the planet had developed an unknown technology that made noisy despair impossible. Meanwhile, on Earth, the streets and cities remained awake with life, though under the constant awareness of the unseen enemy. In small towns and bustling metropolises alike, nothing seemed to change at first glance. People continued to go about their everyday lives, unaware that millions of kilometers above, alien ships floated motionlessly, waiting for a signal that would never come. There were no alarms, no frantic emergency broadcasts, no desperate pleas for peace. Instead, the citizens of Earth were given a moment of eerie reprieve, a pause that left them wondering about the motives of both their supposed aggressors and their own silent government. Back in the Valari command ship, tension gave way to confusion, and then to a growing fear among the alien ranks. Every officer watched the monitors intently, desperate for any sign of life or rebellion. There were moments when a single wave of data would flicker across the screen, as if trying to speak, but the information was incomplete, fragmented into a puzzle that no one could piece together. In a dimly lit room filled with holographic displays, young Lieutenant Ral hesitated before pressing a button to recheck the data logs. His hands trembled slightly as he reported, "Captain, the communications remain dead. It's like they purposely turned off every signal." Zandor's expression did not change, but inside he felt a growing dread. This was not how a typical target should behave. The silence outside Earth's atmosphere was a deafening reminder of the unknown. For the Valari, accustomed to easily subduing civilizations that screamed and cowered, the utter quiet was a cruel mystery. Each passing minute felt heavier, laden with the possibility that Earth was not an easy conquest at all, but a trap of its own making. Had the humans, in their wisdom or hubris, chosen silence as their last defense? Or was this a sign of something more sinister, a technology or a power that even the Valari had not reckoned with? Such questions swirled in the mind of every alien, turning suspicion into paranoia. Even as the seconds bled into hours, the fleet did not launch any further action. The silence turned into a kind of waiting game, a tense, anxious wait where every second brought more questions than answers. The Valari's strategy had always been simple: overwhelm and dominate. But the apparent absence of a response left them frustrated and unsettled. There were murmurs among the lower ranks of a hidden danger, a secret weapon that the humans might be holding back for just such an occasion. The notion was terrifying. The idea that there could be a force on Earth, capable of neutralizing an entire fleet without a single word being spoken, made every alien heart race with dread. As the Valari continued their vigil, the endless quiet began to chip away at the certainty of victory. In that silence lay the promise of an imminent storm, a warning that the humans would not be easily conquered. And somewhere, far beneath, the surface of a seemingly peaceful world, preparations were already underway. Even if Earth would not offer any pleas of mercy, it was preparing its own response in a language written not in words, but in actions. In that stillness, as every Valari officer waited with bated breath, Captain Zandor silently vowed that they would learn the truth behind this unprecedented silence. For now, Earth had not shown any resistance, but it had also refused to surrender. Instead, it challenged the invaders with quiet defiance, a mystery that promised to turn the tide of the conflict in ways the aliens had never imagined. With the fleet poised in the void and Earth's secrets hidden beneath an unbroken silence, the first chapter of this galactic confrontation had begun. And as they waited, the Valari knew that any sound, any word, could be the spark that ignited. A war unlike any they had seen before. The Valari finally grew tired of waiting. After 2 full Earth days of complete silence, they decided it was time to act. No messages, no surrender, no resistance, just a quiet blue planet turning slowly beneath them. Captain Zandor gave the order to send scouts. "Find out what's down there," he said calmly, but everyone on the bridge felt the unease in his voice. The fleet launched a group of small, fast reconnaissance ships toward the surface. Their goal was simple: land, scan, report. The first scout ship entered the atmosphere over North America. It glided silently through the clouds and descended toward what once was a major city. Tall buildings still stood, roads stretched in every direction. But something felt wrong. There were no cars, no people, not even birds in the sky. The streets were completely empty. When the ship landed, the crew stepped out into a ghost town. Captain Jern, who led the scout team, walked through the streets, weapon ready. The buildings were clean, untouched, as if everyone had just walked out minutes ago. Restaurants had food still on plates, stores were lit. Traffic lights blinked from red to green, but no vehicles moved. He stepped into a cafe and found a hot cup of coffee, still steaming. It was impossible. "They left in a hurry," one of his soldiers whispered. But why was everything so fresh? Jern sent his scans back to the command ship. Life signs were detected, millions of them, but they were deep underground or somewhere the scans couldn't fully reach. It was like the surface was a shell hiding something else. And then the strangest thing happened. Every electronic device the scouts brought with them began to glitch. Their helmets filled with static. Their weapons flickered. Their communication. Links went dead. Back in orbit, Zandor watched the screens go dark one by one. The scout ship wasn't responding. One moment, he could see them moving. The next, they were gone. Not destroyed, just vanished. He stared at the empty feed. "Send another team," he ordered, but deep down, he hesitated. Fear crept into his thoughts. What could take out a fully armed crew without sound, without damage, without a single trace? Hours passed. Still no word. Then a strange signal came. Through. Not from the scout team, but from Earth itself. It was a short video, security camera footage. The Valari gathered around to watch it. On the screen, they saw humans walking through a city plaza. Suddenly, they all stopped and looked up, as if they knew they were being watched. One young girl smiled directly into the camera. She raised her hand, and the screen cut to black. Zandor replayed it 5 times, the same smile, the same wave. It wasn't fear. It wasn't surrender. It was a message. "They know we're here," he said quietly. "They're not running. They're waiting." More ships were sent to other locations, Europe, Asia, Africa. The same result. Empty cities. Warm meals, power still running, but no people. Sometimes strange signs were left behind. Half-written notes, drawings of alien ships, chalk marks on roads. It was like the humans wanted the Valari to see they were gone, but watching. Then came the second shock. One of the recon ships landed near a large stadium. The soldiers entered carefully, scanning every corner. In the center of the field was a table. On the table, a small box. Inside the box, a speaker. And when they turned it on, it spoke in perfect Valari language. Just 3 words. "You are late." Panic started to spread in the fleet. Valari soldiers began whispering that Earth had set a trap. Officers argued about retreating. Some believed humans had built a weapon that couldn't be seen. Others said Earth had made a deal with some higher power, something that protected them now. Xandor didn't speak much. He just stared out at the planet. What kind of enemy prepares a planet like this? What kind of people disappear from the surface without a fight, but leave everything behind as if they'd be back soon? It wasn't weakness. It wasn't surrender. It was something else. Something more dangerous. That night, the Valari fleet turned off all outside lights and entered. Captain Xandor stood quietly on the bridge of the Valari command ship. Outside the thick glass, Earth hung like a blue jewel in space, beautiful, calm, and completely silent. Too silent. 3 scout teams had already vanished. No trace, no signal. Just gone. And yet the humans had left messages. Not words of surrender or fear, but strange, calm signs. Smiles, waves, and those chilling words. "You are late." The Valari were warriors. They did not fear easily. But now whispers spread across the fleet. Something was wrong with this world. Something deep. Something hidden. Xandor tried to stay focused. He gave the order for the 4th Scout Team. This time, they would go with heavier armor and backup. They would land near an old human military base, a place once known as Area 12. The shuttle broke through Earth's atmosphere and landed near the edge of a desert. The air was still, the sun shone brightly. The team stepped out, scanning the area. At first, everything looked normal. Dust, rocks, old broken buildings, but as they moved closer, the scanners picked up something strange underground. A metal structure, massive and active. Lieutenant Sarek, who led the mission, found a sealed hatch hidden beneath the sand. The entrance looked human-made, but was covered in strange symbols. Not words, just marks. They opened the hatch and climbed, down into darkness. The deeper they went, the more unnatural it felt. Walls were made of metal, but the metal seemed alive, humming softly like it was breathing. Inside, there were no guards, no defense systems, just long, quiet halls. They found machines, huge ones, sleeping in the dark. Strange, robotic forms, hung from the ceilings like bats. The scanners showed no signs of power, yet the machines were warm. As if they had just shut off seconds ago, Sarek approached one and reached out. Before he could touch it, the machine's eye blinked red. It didn't move. It didn't speak. But its eye followed him. Just watching. Sarek backed away slowly, whispering into his mic. "These machines are not off. They're waiting." They explored deeper. They found rooms full of strange tools, tools made for surgery, not war. Rooms full of data pads that held no language the Valari could read. In one room, they found something worse. Human clothes, dozens of them, folded neatly on beds, shoes placed beside them. But no bodies, no blood. Just the clothes, fresh, clean, untouched. Back in orbit, Xandor watched the live feed. He didn't like what he was seeing. "Get out of there," he said, "now!" But just as he spoke, the video feed began to crackle. Static. And then voices. Hundreds of them. All human. Whispering together, speaking in perfect sync. We're quiet," the voices said. "You came anyway." The Valari crew froze. Every screen on the bridge went black. Then one by one they turned back on, each showing a different image. A Valari scout team standing in front of a machine, then gone. Another ship flying over a city, then vanished mid-air. A final image appeared, a a single human sitting in a dark room, staring directly at the camera. He spoke just 2 words. Still. Watching. Then everything shut off. Inside the base on Earth, Sarek's team tried to escape. But the doors wouldn't open. The walls began to shift, metal plates sliding and twisting on their own. The air became hot. Lights turned red. One soldier screamed as a machine dropped from the ceiling and wrapped around him, silent, fast, with no sound but a click. Sarek fired his weapon. It passed through the machine like smoke. It wasn't real. Or maybe it was something more. He shouted orders, but his voice echoed strangely, like the base itself was repeating him. Get out! Get out, out, out! And then the feed ended. In space, Captain Zandor watched his 4th team vanish just like the others. The room was silent except for the soft sound of breathing. No one dared to speak. Something was very wrong with Earth. They had expected resistance. They had prepared for war, but what they had found was worse than war. It was patience, intelligence, control, and silence so deep it crushed their minds. Zandor turned to his officers. We came here to conquer, but I think we walked into something else. An officer looked at him, pale. Sir, do we retreat? Zandor didn't answer. He stared out the window at Earth. The blue planet sat silently, like it had all the time in the universe. No messages, no threats, no movement. Just silence. And it was killing them faster than any weapon could. Captain Zandor sat in silence. The bow. Bridge of the Valari command ship was darker now. Lights were dimmed. Screens were turned off unless absolutely needed. The crew whispered instead of speaking. Something was wrong, and everyone felt it. Not just fear, something deeper. Like, the silence from Earth was pressing into their minds. 4 scout teams were gone. No explosions, no wreckage, no bodies, just vanished. They had come to Earth expecting a simple invasion. But instead they found a world that was empty on the outside, but full of hidden danger. Now the crew didn't speak about conquest. They spoke of survival. Zandor had ordered the fleet to move further from the planet, just enough to give them more reaction time, but it didn't help. The silence still followed them. Ships began reporting strange malfunctions, tools stopping mid-use, engines turning off for seconds, lights flickering without reason. And then came the whispers. It started on a small transport ship. A technician reported hearing voices in the air vents. He thought it was a crewmate, but when he checked, the hallway was empty. Others began to hear things too, soft words and human voices speaking in perfect Valari. Not screaming, not angry. Just calm. And close. You don't belong. Here. Zandor was furious. He thought someone was playing a trick, maybe a virus in the systems. He ordered all AI units to be shut down. But the whispers continued. Even with power cut. Even in sealed rooms. Sometimes a voice would say someone's name before they heard it. Other times, it repeated a memory they never shared with anyone. The crew began losing sleep. Some refused to leave their rooms. One young officer, barely 22 cycles old, sat in the medbay staring at the wall. When Zandor asked what happened, the officer replied, "She told me I'd die if I moved." "Who?" Zandor asked. "The girl from the camera, the one who waved." Zandor froze. That video again. The wave, the smile, and now the voice. A senior engineer came forward next. She reported that something was inside the metal, not physically, but like a signal, deep in the code. When she tried to delete it, the system replied with a message. "You are part of the story now." Zandor knew this was no longer a normal mission. Earth wasn't just defending itself. It was responding. He called a meeting of his top officers. The room was tense. No one wanted to speak first. Finally, Zandor looked at them and said what they were all thinking. This is not just a planet. It's a weapon, a trap, and we stepped into it willingly. One officer shook his head. But there are no guns, no missiles, no shields. Exactly, Xandor replied. It doesn't fight like us. It waits. It watches. It whispers until we tear ourselves apart. Just then, the ship's emergency lights flashed. Not red, not warning, but blue. Calming. Too calm. And a sound filled the air. A lullaby. Human. Gentle. A woman's voice, humming a tune no one recognized. And then, as the crew gathered on the bridge in confusion, every screen turned on. A face appeared. It was the same human girl from before. She smiled again. But this time she spoke. We gave you time. We gave you silence. You chose to fill it with fear. No threats, no demands, just those words. And then, the image disappeared. The lullaby stopped. The lights dimmed again. A deep silence returned. But now it felt alive. Xandor knew they couldn't stay, but he also knew leaving might not be enough. Something had followed them. Not physically, but through their systems, their minds, their fear. They had underestimated the humans. They had thought silence meant weakness. But now, the silence had a voice, and that voice was starting to spread. Across the fleet, more crew members began reporting dreams, strange dreams of walking on Earth being watched and then waking with tears they couldn't explain. A senior weapons officer wrote a report in his sleep, pages of human symbols he'd never learned, and one ship, on the edge of the fleet, went completely dark. No distress call, no signal. When another ship approached, it found the crew alive, but silent, sitting at their stations, eyes open, breathing, but not moving. When they were brought aboard the command ship, they only said one thing. She is still watching. Xandor no longer thought about conquering Earth. He thought about getting away, if it was even possible anymore. And far below, on the quiet blue planet, something watched from deep underground, still silent, still patient, still smiling. Captain Xandor stood alone in the strategy room. The stars outside the window felt colder now. The command ship floated far from Earth, but the silence still followed them. It was in the air, in their bones, and in their minds. He looked at the screen in front of him, ship after ship reporting the same thing. Whispers, strange dreams, and complete mental shutdowns. The Valari had never seen a weapon like this. It was not firepower. It was not technology. It was something else. Something older. Something human. Xandor had sent for help. A long-range transmission to the High Council. He told them everything. How Earth never answered. How scout teams vanished. How whispers crawled into their minds. He begged for reinforcements or rescue. But days passed. No answer. Then, one morning, the communication officer walked into the bridge, pale and shaking. "Sir, we got a reply." Xandor turned sharply. "From the council?" The officer shook her head. "No, sir, from Earth." A message had come, through the encrypted channel. No origin point, no signal trail, just a short audio file, exactly 5 seconds long. They played it once on the bridge. No music, no voice, just the sound of breathing, slow, steady, human breathing. The room fell, silent. No one moved. Xandor clenched his jaw. Where did it come from? "There's no source, sir," the officer whispered. "The message came from inside our systems. We were never contacted. It was already there." That night, something changed. 3 more ships went dark. Not destroyed, just quiet. Lights still on, life support still working, but crews unresponsive. Floating in space with open eyes and still bodies, one ship tried to escape. The Talon's Edge, a fast recon vessel, broke formation and jumped into hyperspace. Before it vanished, they sent a final transmission. "The stars are gone!" the pilot screamed. "We're jumping, but the stars are gone. There's nothing. She's in the..." And then silence. Xandor watched as fear consumed his fleet. Officers argued. Crews begged to leave orbit. Some even tried to destroy their own equipment, thinking the humans had infected the machines. Others refused to sleep. They were afraid of what they might dream. Xandor called a final meeting. Only 5 officers showed up. The rest were either missing, silent, or too afraid to move. "This is no war," Xandor said quietly. "This is a message, a lesson. The humans didn't build a trap. They became one." One officer looked at him with wide eyes. "Then what do we do, Captain? We can't fight silence." Xandor looked out the window at Earth, still quiet, still spinning like nothing was wrong. "We send one last signal, not a threat, not a question, just an apology." The officers stared at him. "You think they'll answer?" one asked. "I don't want an answer," Xandor said. "I just want them to stop." So the Volari sent their last message to Earth. It was short. Xandor himself recorded it. "We were wrong. We came with pride and weapons. You answered with silence. We ask only this now. Let us go." They broadcast it on all channels in all languages. Then they waited. An hour passed. Then 2. Nothing changed. But then every ship in the fleet powered down. Not violently, not suddenly, just soft and slow, like something had pressed a finger against their hearts. Lights dimmed, engines cooled, weapons deactivated, life support still worked, but everything else went quiet, and in that quiet came a voice. Not through speakers, not through data, through dreams. Everyone heard it at the same time, a woman's voice, calm, soft. "You came with fire, but we are made of stars. Now you understand." When the Volari awoke, their ships were working again. No damage, no whispers. No more dreams, just silence. But this silence felt different. Not cold, not angry, peaceful, final. Xandor gave the order. "We're leaving." The fleet turned away from Earth. No one spoke, no one cheered. They just left. And Earth didn't follow. Earth didn't threaten. Earth didn't speak again, because it didn't need to. The last signal had been sent. The galaxy would remember that silence, and it would never return. Years passed, but no one forgot what happened near Earth. The Volari never spoke about it again, at least not in public. Their fleet had returned without a fight, without glory, and without answers. People whispered behind closed doors. Some believed the mission was a failure. Others believed something worse, that Earth had done something impossible, that it had changed the Volari. Captain Xandor disappeared after the return. No retirement speech, no final command. He just vanished. Some said he was taken by the same silence that haunted them near Earth. Others said he never really left the planet at all. But the real trouble began when the silence started to spread. It began with small things. A research station on the edge. A Volari space stopped sending updates. A mining ship near a dead moon went silent. No crash, no warning, just nothing. Then messages started arriving. Short, empty. Some were recordings of breathing, others were just static. But the strange part was where they were coming from. Earth was nowhere near them. Something was traveling. Not ships, not weapons, just a signal, a presence. It didn't attack, it didn't destroy, but it arrived, and silence followed. Some said it was Earth's warning echoing through the stars. Others believed Earth had released something, an ancient force tied to humanity's mind, its history, or even its pain. Whatever it was, the galaxy felt it. The Gorthan Empire, proud and brutal, sent a fleet to Earth after hearing what happened to the Volari. They mocked the silence. They laughed at the fear. Their ships never made it, not even a distress call, just a final looping message. Why did we come here? The Gorthan fell quiet after that. No more attacks, no more invasions. They didn't even try to explain. And still, Earth never spoke. One curious race, the Lorethi, famous for gathering stories and exploring mysteries, decided to investigate. They never attacked. They simply watched. They landed small drones on Earth's surface. No resistance, no reaction. But when they played back the footage, Every drone had captured something strange. A girl, always the same one. Standing far, away, smiling, waving, and in every video, the moment she lifted her hand, the drone would shut down. The Lorethi called it the gesture of silence. It became a warning, a symbol. Even without words, the humans had created fear stronger than any weapon. And yet, people were still curious. What was Earth now? Was anyone still alive? Was the silence a shield, or something darker, across the stars? Governments debated. Should they risk contact again? Should they send peaceful ships? But no one moved. Not even the bravest bounty hunters dared to land. One tiny ship, old and forgotten, passed by Earth by accident. The pilot was a merchant, carrying food and junk tech. His ship malfunctioned and dropped him near the blue planet. He stayed for 2 hours. Then somehow the ship fixed itself. It jumped away on its own. He never spoke again. Not a word. He now sits in a hospital on Loran 5, alive, breathing, eyes wide open, but silent. Doctors say there's nothing wrong with his body, but something in his mind is changed. All he does is hold a picture of Earth, drawn in pencil by his own hand. In the corner of the paper, there's a message. She saw me. That message was not written in his language. It was human. The galaxy finally understood. This was not just fear, not just power. This was memory, trauma, something deep inside humanity that could not be touched, measured, or erased. Earth had stopped talking because it didn't need to scream anymore. Its silence echoed louder than any war. Those echoes now traveled across the stars, into minds, into systems, into dreams, and no one dared to chase the sound back to its source. Because by now, everyone understood one thing. If Earth wanted to speak, you'd already be gone. The galaxy had grown used to Earth's silence. It was no longer just a mystery. It was a rule. A shadow everyone stayed away from. Ships avoided the Sol system. Maps marked it with red borders and quiet warnings. Do not enter. Do not wake what sleeps. But not everyone obeyed. A small group of scientists from the neutral world of Dreska believed silence was just fear. They thought the stories were exaggerated. They had studied human records, ancient broadcasts, even old Earth, music. To them, Earth wasn't dangerous. It was misunderstood. So they built a ship, light and fast, with only one mission, to land on Earth and return with proof that humanity was still just a species, not a myth. They launched quietly. No government approved it. No media followed it. The ship disappeared into Sol space, and this time, something was different. They landed. No storm stopped them. No systems failed. Their ship touched down on a grassy field. The sky above them was blue. The air, clean. Birds flew overhead. The planet looked alive but empty. There were roads, buildings, cars, all still, all untouched by time. But no people, just silence. The team walked for hours. They found homes, with half-eaten meals still on tables, schools with books open, streets with bikes leaning on walls, as if the world had paused mid-breath. No signs of struggle, just gone. One of the scientists, Kira, whispered, "It's like they vanished in a second, like someone snapped their fingers and erased the sound of life." Then they heard footsteps, not many, just one pair. From behind a large glass building, a figure walked out. A human, a man. He looked young, calm, wearing simple clothes, no weapons, no armor. He smiled at them. Kira stepped forward. You're human. Where is everyone?" The man tilted his head slightly. "Here. But we don't see them." "You're not supposed to," he replied. "Why?" Kira asked. The man took a breath. "Because the galaxy asked too many questions, and Earth answered one final time." He reached into his pocket and held up an old silver recorder. It was dented, worn, and looked ancient. He pressed play. There was no sound, just silence. But the moment it played, the scientists froze. Not from fear, but from understanding. In that silence, they saw it. They saw war, genocide, suffering, centuries of pain. Earth had endured. Every invasion, every betrayal, every friend turned enemy, every scream that went unheard. They saw Earth fighting, back, not with power but with choice. It chose silence, because nothing else had worked, and that silence had weight, made of memory, rage, and sadness. It wasn't a weapon. It was Earth saying, "You no longer deserve our voice." Kira dropped to her knees. Tears streamed down her face. "We didn't know." The man nodded. "Now you do." "But can we fix it?" "You can't fix what you never understood," he said softly. "But you can leave." The others nodded. They turned back toward the ship, but Kira stayed. "Wait, please. One last question." The man paused. She asked, "Will humanity ever return to the stars?" He looked up at the sky. The sun was setting. "When the stars learn to listen," he said, "we will speak again." Then he vanished, just like that, as if Earth had taken him back. The scientists left. They said nothing to the galaxy. They gave no reports. They erased the coordinates. But they did share one thing: a file. 5 seconds long, just breathing, and one sentence typed underneath it. Earth lives, but it no longer waits. From that day on, silence became more than fear. It became respect. And across the stars, whenever someone spoke of war or conquest, someone would whisper, "Be careful, Earth is listening." But Earth never spoke again, because it didn't need to. Its silence had already said everything.